How's it going, everybody? And welcome back to another edition of the Stupid Questions podcast. Today, we're going to be talking with Sean Conway, who is known for breaking multiple world records that include swimming, biking, and running together and separately. Most notably, recently for completing 105 Ironmans in 105 days. Yes, that is consecutive 105 Ironmans in 105 days. Absolutely insane. Today we talk a little bit about him, get to hear about his backstory. I don't even think I need to give much more of an introduction. Hopefully that is enough of a hook. So without further ado, please enjoy this conversation with Sean Conway. So the first question I'd love to start out with is from a third person perspective, who is Sean Conway?
Oh, depends who's asking, I guess. But right now, I'm a dad, a husband. Um, I get called an
Yeah.
adventurer, and I don't really correct people, but I'm more an ultra endurance athlete, I guess.
Okay.
Because in the world of adventure, you sort of got exploration on one side and sport on the other side, and I'm really at the sport end of the adventure spectrum, I guess.
Sure.
So yeah, so that's kind of what I am, and also I feel like the word adventurer sounds a bit
Yeah.
wanky. It's like saying you're a
Yeah.
poet. It's like I don't know how to if I say it feels like in the same thing. You're like I don't know, like what does that
Yeah.
mean? Like
Yeah. What is it really? So if you had to pick
yeah,
one word, that's all you could use to describe yourself. One word. What would that word be?
yeah, probably
Sportsman.
sportsman. Yeah, I'm probably a
Yeah,
sportsman.
nice.
Yeah,
So where'd you grow up?
grew up in on the banks of the Zambezi River in Zimbabwe, where I was
Yeah,
born, and then I moved to South Africa when I was quite young, and grew up in some big game reserves, big national
yeah,
parks in South Africa. So yeah, it was quite an adventurous upbringing.
sure.
So all the times my old man gave me grief for not having a real job, I was like, it's your fault.
Yeah, you raised me.
Yeah, you put elephants in my garden, drinking all the water out my paddling pool.
Yeah,
Like I was never gonna sit at a desk, was I?
yeah, yeah. That's super fascinating. So was that because of just your family wanted to live on the banks of the Zambezi, or were they a military family, or what's the story behind that?
Yeah, no, just game parks. These were the big game parks. So my dad's a rhino and elephant
Okay,
conservationist.
wow.
Basically, spent his whole 35 years in formal um, 45 years in formal rhino and elephant conservation
Yeah,
at a government level. So not in the private sector. So
sure.
not sort of for private game parks, but for the national game parks. So yeah, and animals get poached a lot, unfortunately. So
Yeah,
he had a pretty stressful career trying to make sure rhinos especially elephants get
yeah,
poached, but
sure,
not as much
sure. Yeah.
anymore. But yeah, rhinos
I
get
wonder why.
drilled still. So yeah,
Is it because of the
yeah. Well,
largeness of the tusks?
so rhino horns are more valuable than elephant tusks. So elephant tusk became pretty much illegal worldwide. I can't remember when. I'm gonna say the 70s, 80s. I've
Okay,
probably got that completely wrong, but
sure.
it yeah, it's illegal everywhere. And rhino horn's illegal, but because it's a medicine, well, it's perceived to be a medicine. It's not a medicine. It's just biting your fingernails, same sort of thing.
Yeah,
Um, it's yeah, it's sort of somehow people take a risk to go for it.
wow.
And also those big long tusked elephants, they've all been poached out, and
Mm-hmm.
and so in the game reserve I grew up, most of the elephants had really small
Yeah,
tusks, and it's just not worth it. Not worth shooting them really if you're a
yeah,
poacher. Whereas if you get a rhino with two big rhino horns, that's big
yeah.
money. So that's why the rhinos got drilled
So
and the elephants haven't done.
I've heard, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I've heard that elephants have like almost started to genetically adapt to have shorter tusks over the past due to like the poaching. They just don't grow out as long enough and they're killed. And obviously the ones have smaller ones mate. Do you know if that's true or false?
Yeah, it's probably a little chicken and egg. It's probably to grow a big tusks. There was probably a gene to have big
Yeah.
tusks, and if all those big tusks
Yeah.
died and got
Yeah.
shot, they weren't reproducing anymore. So their gene didn't get passed on to the next generation. So all the males and females with smaller tusks who survived, they're the ones that are breeding now.
Yeah.
So there could be some. I wouldn't be surprised if that happened,
Yeah.
but certainly where I grew up, we didn't have. There was a couple of big tuskers, but most of them had sort of 1 or 2 foot long tusks.
Yeah.
Really.
Interesting. So, how about your mom? What does she do, or what did she do?
Yeah, so mum worked in the game reserve as
Okay.
well. Mainly looked after myself and my sister. So keeping us from harm's way in the African bush. There's spiders and snakes, and scorpions everywhere. So that was pretty stressful, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, so she really brought us up, I guess, as kids while Dad was off on horseback.
Yeah. It's
Typical.
wild.
It's like from the movies, like you jump on a
Yeah, I
horse
was
and
gonna say
they go
Indiana Jones type.
anti-poaching, and yeah, exactly. So yeah, mum took care of us at home basically, and then also she would work within the game reserve as well. So she would do admin jobs in the office and sort of became Dad's secretary a little bit once we were sort of at school.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, she worked in conservation too.
Enough cannot be said about a good mom and the importance of them. My mom was, for most of our upbringing, a single mom, and I watched her do many a great thing. So I have a lot of respect for her and other moms alike who not only live a life of, career, but also like bringing up kids. That's a big thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially in Africa when everything's trying to kill your children.
Yeah.
So it's quite tough.
So tell me a little bit about your sister. Do you guys share a lot of common traits and adventureness and sportsmanness?
Yeah, my sister's adventurous, but not sporting. I mean, she's run a marathon. She did the London Marathon a while back. But no, there's sort of no sport in my family. My granny was good at athletics and kind of went to the Olympic trials,
Okay.
I believe, back in the day. But yeah, I mean, adventurous in spirit, my sister, but no sort of and will do exercise, but nothing at a sort of anywhere near serious
Sure.
competitive level, I guess.
Okay, for sure.
Yeah.
So going and staying around your childhood for here for a few minutes, because I'm curious like how it shaped you, but I'm wondering specifically, do you have any memories that have served you over the years as just like sort of a foundation, maybe for gratitude or just the way that you view life? Because growing up in that environment, I imagine had its impacts in formulation of who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I keep thinking back on is whenever, I grew up in a third world where there was a lot of poverty and a lot of people on the breadline, and you couldn't help but be surrounded by it, and I definitely noticed it. I wasn't sort of naive to the fact that just down the road there were hundreds of people, not starving, but you'd see the kids on the side of the road. They'd have a hook on a piece of string, sorry. And when the grain trucks would drive past, they would throw this hook and try and tear a hole
pick it up.
in one of the sacks of grain, of corn on the truck. And then they would run down the road and pick up each individual corn kernel. And then if they did that all day, they'd have enough for dinner, So it's definitely given me a reality check on life, because sometimes I can take this thing that I'm doing a bit seriously, and I think I'm doing very important things in the world, trying to inspire people and all that. But then actually, I really need to sort of rain check my ego and go, you know what, mate, you're a white middle class bloke who speaks English. You were born into the top 1% of the luckiest people in the world, So don't get a bit above yourself, and try and give back. So that's really. Having that African upbringing definitely made me appreciate how lucky I am, really, and how fortunate I am that I was born into a position of privilege, purely based on my skin color and the fact I can speak English as my first language. Just even those two things alone
it's such
made me have an easier life, really. So yeah, I definitely don't take that for granted anymore, and I do my best to try and hopefully inspire other people from all walks of life. So so there was that, and then also just the amazing African childhood I had, which even in Africa it was quite rare. So when I went to school for the first time, even my African school kids friends were like, "Whoa, Sean, you live in the bush and you've got this incredible like outdoorsy game reserve life. So I was quite aware from an early age that I was living quite a unique life that not many people got to live.
Yeah.
And I guess that's also definitely extended into my adult life, where I really do have this desire to live a unique and interesting life. The idea of doing something normal in inverted commas really kind of gives me panic attacks,
Yeah.
sort of. So yeah, it's that's the other thing that's really put a stamp on me, I guess, is this desire to be unique and different.
Yeah. So you said a little bit ago, maybe just a few seconds ago, that you no longer take that for granted, just the opportunities that you've kind of been given, born with, and then some of them obviously I think were created by the lifestyle that you live. Do you remember a point in time where your mind started to like, I did not mean to say that. Your mindset.
That's what's going on in my mind most of the time. It's just mush. And
I didn't think I was going to have to mark this episode explicit because of myself. But anyway, do you have a specific, like a moment when you kind of start to realize your mind start to shift into a place of like that gratitude?
No, I think I've always been quite aware of my situation, to the point of its detriment. I think if anything, I would get this real, like, overwhelming guilt, and I'm like, well, why bother cycling around the world, Sean? Like, come on, dude. Like, there's a million people starving in the world. Really, what's the point in you doing this? Like, really, it's just this like middle class white man's thing.
Yeah.
And so there were times where I sort of thought, well, I'm just not going to do it because it's a slap in the face to people who can't. But then, you can't dim your light to make someone else's light seem brighter. Because if we all did that, the world would be in darkness. So,
Flip that.
Yeah, I didn't come up with that, by the way. Okay. Someone else more intelligent than me came up with that phrase, but I quite liked it.
Sure.
But it's true, like you need to still make the most of the situation you're in. And I happen to have lived in a I've been born lucky, and I'm able, and I'm physically able, mentally able. Yes, my family don't have money, so there's those hurdles I've still had to jump through to do a lot of the things I've done, because the harder they get, the more expensive they get, so the more sponsorship you need to raise. So it's not like I was, born into this really wealthy family and I could just go off and do whatever I wanted. I still had, we still come from a very humble family. My dad's a game ranger. We just lived in the bush. He got given a house to live in. So because of that, the salaries were low because they knew you didn't need much, type thing. So, I still had to graft. I still graft now to try and get things off the ground. But I'm also still very aware that, I'm very privileged in what I do and what I'm able to do. But I also have a responsibility to not squander it. It would be stupid if I then didn't take advantage of my skill and my ability as an athlete, which I only discovered when I was 30. So
how old are you now?
I had some catch up. I'm 42, so it's been 12 years now that I'm trying to make up for lost time, really, for terrible decisions in my 20s, I guess.
So I'm curious. Just from reading about you, it sounds like 2012 was like kind of your first big adventure thing that we'll talk about. What was it like going from, you're growing up in Africa and then South Africa, you get to, let's say, grade school, high school, and college. Tell me about that progression of Sean, because you said like in the 20s you were kind of messing around. What was that progression like to eventually you were like, oh, maybe I'll start doing these types of things?
So I call it my old life now. My old life was a photographer, and I started photography when I was about 12.
Oh, really?
And I started actually making, like, not a living from it, but I started making money from photography when I was about 15. I used to go and take photos at school sports days, and then I'd get the photos printed out, and then I'd hustle around the the lunch hall and try and sell the pictures for like 50p.
Yeah.
And this was in South Africa, so it was £5, which is even less now. It's like 25 pence or something. So so I was sort of hustling it, and I loved photography, man. It was just like I just got captivated by being a photographer quite early on in life, as I said, when I was about 12. And then really when I was like 15, 16, I really knew that that's all I wanted to do in life. So I did that. Went to photography college, aced that. Got asked to be a lecturer for a year after college, which I did, because actually that paid off the year of teaching. So it was quite nice. Actually, and almost I got another year of studying, because when you teach, you learn just as much. So that was quite a good deal I got there. And then I moved to London. And then when I was 20, I moved to London because London's the middle of the map. If you want to go traveling, you can go anywhere from the middle of the map, right?
Yeah.
And you're earning pounds. You know, the South African rand doesn't get you very far.
Yeah.
And excuse me. And then I thought, right, well, let me go to London. That'll be the place where I can further this desire to be this incredible National Geographic photographer. But unfortunately, I just kind of lost my way a little bit, and lost the dream, and lost the kind of the drive to follow the dream, and other dreams replaced it. And they were just bad dreams, and they were mostly financially motivated. So I was choosing jobs that paid well, but weren't necessarily that creative, or weren't necessarily on the path which would lead me to be this amazing National Geographic photographer. And I did that. It's amazing how quickly 10 years goes. 20 to 30 was like boom.
Yeah, same.
And all of a sudden I was 30. I was like, how the hell did that happen? And I wasn't where I wanted to be in my photography life. I actually had fallen out of love with photography by this point. So that's when I decided to sort of just go cold turkey on the photography, with this sort of weird notion of wanting to go traveling, but didn't have any money to go traveling. So I thought, what if there's some sort of world record that has an element of travel to it? Maybe I'll get some sponsorship. And so that was it. So 2012, as you said, was my attempt at the round the world cycling record, which really I had no business attempting.
Yeah.
Absolutely none. Like, I had zero experience. I didn't actually even own a good bike. I had cycled the length of Britain, but super slowly. I was doing like 30 mile a day or something.
Okay.
So there was zero athletic ability
required.
I had athletic ability, because obviously I can do these things now, but I had no proof or experience. But I just had a dream and a passion and a drive to just have a crack at it. And someone else also said it's be naive enough to start and stubborn enough to finish. I think I ticked those boxes, definitely.
That's entrepreneurship, athletics. There's so many things in life.
Exactly.
That's how people get somewhere. So you started this adventure, and then I read you were like, it kind of ended partway through because you were hit by a car.
Yeah, in Arkansas, in America, I was ahead of the current world record, and then just someone, it was early in the morning. I have no ill feelings to the chap who ran me over. It was dark. It was raining. I was cycling on a road you would never cycle on.
Yeah.
But how am I to know? I'm just following a line on a map, really. And he had never seen a cyclist in his life on that road at that time of day, because he was a baker. He had to get up early and get to the bakery early.
Yeah.
And it was just one of those unlucky things, really. I think, had I got out of bed a minute earlier or a minute later, maybe I wouldn't have been run over. So that was hard, because the world record was taken away from me, really, on that one.
Yeah.
Through no fault of my own.
Yeah.
And that was quite difficult to deal with in my head, because it wasn't my fault.
Yeah.
And there was
control.
no rhyme or reason. I was like, why me?
Yeah.
But I carried on anyway, because I was raising money for charity, and it was tough to carry on because the fight was gone, really. Yeah, and there was the injury and all that, but mainly the fight was gone, and the fight is the thing that excited me the most. I
Yeah.
really enjoyed the chase. And
Yeah.
then, there was a new chase. I was trying to get back to London in time for the Olympics, so that was pretty cool. But it still wasn't the same. So even though I
Yeah.
finished that around the world bike ride, I sort of was a bit depressed because I was like, I never once looked back and enjoy and could say, oh well, that was an amazing experience because I got run over and couldn't get the
Yeah.
record. That overshadowed everything else, which is a shame really because not many people get the chance to cycle around the world twice. So I sort of messed it up because probably what I should have done is gone, right, well, you can't get the record now, Sean. Why don't you just have the adventure of a lifetime? But I was still so adamant. I was trying to push it hard, even for the next 12,000
Mm.
miles. I still got up every day. I didn't have a rest day. I still cycled 130, 140 miles a
Wow.
day, all the way back until I got back to London, which I didn't really have to
Yeah.
do. But I don't know. I just, I didn't have to, but I sort of did have to in my head
Yeah.
because I just was still adamant to try and push it hard and chase something,
Yeah.
even though the record was off.
Yeah, for sure. So, and I want to go back because I probably should ask this question first, but when you first decide like, oh, I'm going to do something like bike across the world, you said you didn't, you were too naive to start it. And then I assume as you got into it with any project, you realize there are a lot of logistical things that have to happen. So what was it like trying to put together everything to like, okay, now we have a date and this is going to be executed from here forward? What's that prep work?
Yeah, well, first up is getting the funding. So that was priority number one because I had zero money. So there's no way I could even have started. So I managed to get sponsorship. So that was, and I got sponsorship quite early on. So I got sponsored probably about 6 months before the start in
Okay.
February 2012. And that was a huge weight off my shoulder because, it means I could then just train hard and go for it. Then there was, you know, I just got super excited about all the logistics side of things. So that, finding the bike, researching the best bike. I went for a steel frame bike with a roll-off hub, which is bulletproof. Um, then finding a route, so hours and hours spent on Google Street View, which in third world countries wasn't as good as it is now.
Yeah.
So South America, I had some satellite views and a couple of people, they had the where people upload photos, but that wasn't very reliable as it turned out. Um, and then coming up with the exact distance, you need to be as close to 18,000 miles as possible because anything over 18,000 doesn't count. So,
Oh,
you
really?
may, if there's two people that are head to head, someone might get back on 18,050
Yeah.
miles, um, and someone might do 18,200 miles.
Okay.
So, there could be someone who sort of is ahead of you, but has messed up their route. So, and they land up overshooting the
Oh,
route. So,
interesting.
so there's a lot of that logistics. So you sort of painstakingly doing a course that arrives back at the at your exact start end point, bang on 18,000 miles or 18,020.
Yeah.
Which again, that's quite hard to do. So yeah, there was a lot of those logistics and then flights. And the rule at the time was you could stop the clock for flights, so there wasn't that much of a stress for flights. They've changed that rule, thankfully. I think it was a crap rule
Yeah.
because people could really take advantage of saying and not that anyone did. Most people were pretty kept to the ethos of the race,
Yeah.
but you could legitimately have a 2 week break at an airport and just say, "Oh, there's no flights."
Interesting.
So and yeah,
Who's the governing body
so
of these world record like endurance?
well, Guinness,
Is Guinness?
yeah, Guinness seemed to be, well, for around the world. It's Guinness, yeah.
Okay.
There's FKT
Yeah.
are starting to take ownership for some records, and I love it. I think they're doing a better job of it. But they're only doing fastest because that's what the F is. Fastest
Yeah.
known
Yeah.
time. So they're not doing firsts or longests or mosts of, which are the three other categories. So there's 4 categories for world records: firsts, longests, fastest, and mosts. And yeah, FKT have done a pretty good job on the fastest.
Yeah.
It'd be nice if a body like them took over other world records because yeah, I think they're just doing a really good job.
Yeah. In just the way that they Like the rules and the documentation and everything like that is just like more updated for the times, do you think?
Yeah, and also it's all they do is the
Yeah.
records. Whereas Guinness, so for when I tried to get a record before I started swimming the length of Britain,
Hmm.
Guinness just didn't even consider it. I just got an email saying, "Oh, sorry, we do not consider swimming the length of Britain a valid world record attempt. Sorry, bye."
Wow.
But then they gave me a full long PDF on the record for to peel and eat 3
Yeah.
lemons and the rules and the regulations and all that. So
Oh, good grief. Yeah.
yeah, and if it doesn't sell the book, it seems maybe that they're not interested. But I could be wrong
Yeah.
there. But they did a couple of they've given a few people some records back in the day which everyone now looks at and goes, "There's no way that person did that record," but they won't rescind the record, which is a shame because they're so unrealistic. No one will ever break them.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of famous ones in the UK, a couple of famous running records that have been held since like the 80s, and people are nowhere near those times now, and everyone's like, "There's no way this guy did it." So yeah, so I think it'd be nice if someone like FKT also did the other 3 types of records.
Yeah, for sure. Interesting.
It's on my to-do list in life one day is create a body, an
I was going to ask
organization
that.
that verifies records. And I'd love to do it where you get medals and there's a whole point system, and I have thought about it a little bit, but it would be a full-time thing, and I'd have to work out whether it's viable really from a time point of view.
Yeah, for sure. Do you think like after you've done something enough, or you're just like your body's done and you're like, okay, now maybe I'll go do this thing?
Yeah. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, it's definitely sort of a back burner thing.
Sure.
My focus at the moment is youth sport. So anything I do outside of the records and the training is just trying to get kids into sport. So that's taking a lot of my focus, and I'm really enjoying that side of things.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe some governing body for records is also in the pipeline. Who knows?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I do want to ask about the swimming record here in a second, but I'm curious through all of these things that you've done, just because we've touched a little bit on the family dynamics, how has this affected through the ups and downs as vulnerable as you want to be, like your marriage and like with your kids? And I'm sure there's dynamics there that you have to really work at. Like, okay, I need to make this happen, but here's the way I need to do it.
Yeah, well, I mean, thanks to COVID,
Yeah.
I've only done one thing. I've only done one thing as a dad and a husband, which is the 105 Ironman distance
Yeah.
triathlons. So yeah, so that was a shock to the system because for 4 years, like everyone else, I was just sat at home
Yeah.
on my ass,
What's next? Yeah.
pretending to be Hemingway. So I think they got quite used to that, and then all of a sudden I was like, right, off to do 105 full irons at the minute. See you in 3.5 months. So that was pretty tough. But I won the wife lottery. She's amazing. She knows the deal. I was doing this when we met, so she knows what I do. The kids, they're a bit young to understand. I got a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, so they're a little bit too young to really care
Yeah.
or anything. So,
Yeah.
which is kind of nice. It kind of brings me back to earth a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm hoping one day they'll
Think dad's cool.
get excited about the
Yeah.
thing I've done.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope so. But I've been told that no teenagers think their dads are cool, so I'm wasting my time.
Yeah. Ringo Starr probably. Yeah.
So yeah, exactly. So no, it is tough though. Like the running joke now is I did 105 Ironmans and now I'm doing 105 days of ironing.
Yeah.
So it's payback time.
Yeah.
But it's I mean, luckily for the most part, yeah, I go away and do these things that are weeks or months long, and then I like to think that actually the rest of the time I'm making up for it because I work from home. It's not like I leave every day and go to an office somewhere else. I'm at home most of the time, and I'm pretty flexible.
Yeah.
I can take the kids to swimming lessons at 2 o'clock on a Tuesday and that sort of thing. So I'm hoping I think there's a good balance.
Yeah, sure.
Although I think if you ask Caroline, there's probably
Yeah, I was going to actually ask, do you think that she'd come on the
yeah.
podcast? Because I'd love to get her perspective of all these things.
The problem is she's too nice.
Yeah.
She'll just say it's all amazing, because she's so amazing and she's such a trooper and she just like cracks on and doesn't complain. Yeah, that's I know that's what she'd say.
Yeah, for sure. How long have you been married?
Oh, don't ask me that. 2018. What's that?
2018, yeah,
Yeah.
about 5 years. Going on
Yeah. So
6
five and a
years, I
bit.
guess.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. There we go.
yeah, good deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you were like married, and all right, a year later, let's have some kids.
Yeah. Straight away, man. I'm 42, man. I needed to
Yeah,
it was great. I scratched a lot of itches in life before having kids, so now there's no regrets. It's
yeah, for
brilliant.
sure. Oh, that's beautiful. So let's. I guess I wanted to ask about the 105 Ironman, but we'll come to that. The swimming the length of Britain. How did that one come about? And tell me a little bit of the logistics and just some of the memories that come through on your mind of like, because I'm sure that was a wild experience.
Yeah, so the anniversary for that, the 10-year anniversary for finishing that is next week. So
Oh wow.
that's I can't believe it's been 10 years now. Um, I was looking, so after I cycled around the world, I tried to get back into employment
Okay.
because I had no money. I was skint. I moved back in with my mum. I signed on to the job seekers on the dole, trying to get work, but I just couldn't. Like, I have no A levels. I didn't go to university, so I just didn't even get any interviews for jobs. And I was applying for jobs with like cycling charities and a couple of photography jobs,
Yeah.
but nothing super serious because I didn't want to do photography anymore. But yeah, so there was I sort of after about 6 months, I suddenly realized I'm gonna have to maybe do another record or at least try, because last time I got some sponsorship and it got me out the house for 6 months.
Yeah.
Let's try something else. So that's when I thought of swimming the length of Britain. Thinking it had been done before, I just thought I could maybe be the fastest. And then it turns out that no one had even attempted it. No one had even gone to the start line. And I was like, well, I thought that was quite strange because there's nothing bigger swims have been done for one.
Yeah.
Someone swam the Amazon,
Wow.
the Mississippi, the Yangtze, which is the same guy. And then a guy sort of swam the Atlantic, this French guy. But he sort of couldn't quite verify it, but still, he swam a lot.
Yeah.
So bigger swims have been done. So and Land's End to John O'Groats, the length of Britain, is such a famous route. People have been doing it for 200 years in various forms.
Yeah.
So the fact that no one had sort of done a swim was sort of baffling, because nothing suggested it was impossible.
Mm-hmm.
It was just going to be miserable and long and tired and all those things, which it exactly was.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, just the overwhelming feeling of that was just being freezing. Like, there's just something about being cold that just saps all your energy, no matter how fit you are or how mentally strong you are. When you're cold, man, there's nothing you can do. And I was just cold for months. And that and getting stung in the face by jellyfish, those are sort of the two overwhelming memories of that experience. Yeah, that was tough.
I heard.
Tough.
I actually read that's why you grew out your beard, is to get rid of the jellyfish sting.
Yeah. So after like a couple of weeks, I realized when I got stung on the face, I wasn't feeling the sting as much on my chin. And I realized that actually the beard was physically stopping the tentacles touching my skin. So I just thought, oh, well, that's it. I'm just going to grow a massive jellyfish beard. And I would still get stung on the nose and the cheeks and my hands. And then, the worst part is I'd get stung on the hand, and then my hands would go numb from the cold water. And then I'd get out the water and forget, and then I'd go to the toilet, and then obviously touch something which would then start stinging, and then or rub my eye. So there was a lot of that going on, which was not much fun.
Yeah, not at all.
But it was. But like. Once I knew it was going to happen every day, I just sort of wanted it to happen straight away. I was like, because the second sting wasn't double the pain.
Yeah.
It's like once you've been stung once, that's the pain. You can get stung 4 or 5 times, and unless it's on a different part of your face. But because it was only my cheeks and nose and hands, really, it was I was like, oh, come on. But every now and then I'd get to my sessions were 4.5 hours. I'd get to like 4 hours and 25 minutes. I'd be 5 more minutes in the water and I'd get stung then. I'm like, no, like so close, man. And then they were the worst, because then I had the sting out the water, which was worse. Because once her face was in the water, like it was so cold, it numbed it a bit. But then getting stung and then getting out the water, I was like, oh no. Now I've got 6 hours of pain, and then as soon as I get in the water, it'll be better 6 hours later. So
Yeah, good grief.
that
Was there any
just
ever like
crap.
health concerns for getting stung too many times? Because actually, I'm pretty sure they inject like a little bit of like venom or something into you when it touches you,
Oh, right.
right?
Okay. I did not think about that
Okay.
at the time. Yeah, I'm just trying.
Probably best not to think
I
about it.
think the most I ever got stung in a session was maybe only like 3 times, because I got quite good at looking ahead,
Yeah.
and I would see them a meter away, and then
Okay.
I would just sort of do a pivot and then push it out the way from my hand. I could almost get stung all day on the hand because you got
Rougher
tougher
skin.
skin on your hand, and I'd sort of just push it out the way. It was the night sessions that were harder because they often came up to the surface at night, and then I would sort of headbutt them. So, but no, truthfully, no one's ever asked me that before, and I've never even thought about it.
Oh,
So
good.
I guess I would have known soon enough had it been bad. I think,
Yeah, your face swells up. You can't
yeah,
breathe. Oh, I guess I'm done.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, just super naive.
Yeah.
It's like just cracked on.
Yeah.
I genuinely, I didn't even think about that even at the time. I was like, whatever. Just wasn't. Just I knew what I needed to do, and there's no point in asking questions where you don't want to hear the answer,
Yeah,
right? So
sure.
you just crack on.
Yeah, exactly. So what was the regiment? Because you said day and night. You said 4.5 hours on, then how long off, and you did this continuously for however long?
Yeah, so there's 2 tides a day. You can't swim against tide because you go backwards. The tide runs for 6 hours roughly, but of that, there's only 4.5 hours to 5 hours of good tide. And at the end of the tide with slack water, it's a bit choppy and bouncy, and it's diminishing returns on putting the hours in. So call it 4.5 hours on, about 7 hours off,
Okay.
and then those tides would move about an hour a day. So, for example, day one I was getting at 6 a.m., swim till 10:30, and then get in sort of at 6 p.m. and swim till about 10:30 at night. And then the following day it'd be 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. and then 8 a.m. and 8 p.m., 9 a.m., 9 p.m. Roughly. That's kind of ballpark,
Yeah.
but yeah, they would shift. So sometimes I was getting in at 2 in the morning. So 2 in the afternoon and then 2 in the morning to get my 2 tides. And but I couldn't always do 2 tides. Like the boat I had was so small. Sometimes our anchorage was so far away, I just couldn't get back in time.
Yeah.
And then in Scotland, we started only, I think for the last month, we just made a call to only do 1 tide a day and make the most of it. So then I was swimming more. I was doing sort of the 5-6 hours and doing just the 1 tide because it was just getting tiring. We would spend 2.5 hours trying to get to an anchorage because you can't just float around in the ocean. Going up the coast, I would, if I stayed in one spot when I finished swimming, the reverse tide would push me potentially 5 miles, 6 miles back.
Oh my word.
So, and then the boat was so small, it couldn't fight the tide. So often we'd have to sort of swim somewhere and then go to shore, find an anchorage, drop anchor, and then go back out for the second tide. But those night tides were just getting quite stressful for the crew, trying to follow me in the water. Yeah. Swimming floats, the buoyancies that you swim with, they for visibility. Mm-hmm. They hadn't been invented yet, so I was literally swimming at night with a reflective armband.
Oh my word.
That was it, because no one had invented these swim floats that everyone uses now. And nowadays you get ones with lights in them. That would have
been a game changer, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I know. So so it was pretty stressful. So eventually we said, right, well, we're only going to do a daytime tide, because it was also October, November in Scotland, and it was pretty dodgy. Yeah, so that was the logistics basically, and then the whole swim took 4.5 months.
Yeah,
so
135 days. That's crazy. So what did you eat?
Yeah.
When you're swimming?
Well, I got sponsored these boil in a bag meals. So there was about 4 or 5 different flavors of this boil in a bag meal, but they were only like 300 calories, I think 400 calories. So I'd have to
eat
put butter in them and olive oil and stuff. I definitely have upped my eating game since those days. Yeah. I think I definitely dropped the ball on the nutrition and the hydration side of things. Hydration was good. I was drinking quite a lot, and I was having some powder in the bottles. But again, if I did that again now, I'd be having 3,000 calories in those bottles just with the powder.
Yeah.
Which I didn't. I was maybe getting 200, 300 calories in powder form in the bottles. So that would have been an easy win on the calorie side of things. And then, again, the boat was so small, we couldn't really cook properly. We had this old paraffin stove, which you needed like a flamethrower to light it, like to heat this element so that the paraffin would turn to vapor. So you're heating this, so the paraffin gets squirted up under pressure. So you pressurize it. And then you turn it on, and then it shoots the paraffin onto this like dome, but it's in liquid form. So that dome needs to be hot. So you have to heat that with a separate like flamethrower, so that then the paraffin turns to vapor, which then lights, because liquid paraffin doesn't light. It's super safe. So it just was such a rigmarole, and then it was not hot enough, so it would take like an hour to get something hot. So I was just eating cold food, and I'd have porridge cold, and so it wasn't ideal. Which again is probably half the reason I was so slow. That's why it took me 4.5 months, because I was just so down on energy, and I wasn't able to push it hard. So, I was maybe only eating 3,000 or 4,000 calories a day. And I should have been eating 8 or 9. And if I had been eating 8 or 9, I could have run at a higher heart rate for longer, which would have made me faster, basically. But because I was so malnourished, I was plodding along at 100, heart rate, trying to survive. I did lose quite a lot of weight, but I didn't have much to lose anyway. But I've come a long way in 10 years. It's sort of a shame now. I wish I'd only thought of that idea now. But But anyway.
Have you ever considered doing it again with just I'm gonna go beat my time? Has anyone else done it since then?
No, because someone else has done it and he did it super quick. He was a better swimmer than me, a faster swimmer than me, and had a much bigger support boat. So I doubt he did in like 60-something days. It was super quick.
Oh, he halved that in half. Wow, that's wild. Do you know him?
Yeah, Ross Edgley. Yeah, he's a monster.
Yeah,
he's a very impressive guy. Yeah,
that's really neat. So let's go to the next record then. Or actually, no. Actually, one more question. I read that you chose the charity War Child to support during that swim. Why did you choose that charity?
So part of my sponsorship for cycling around the world was to raise money for this foundation called the Forward Foundation, part of the Forward Internet Group, and they owned a couple of companies. So I said, right, well, if you sponsor me, I'll raise money for your foundation. And their foundation, I also happened to agree with. They had a whole bunch of charities that they supported, and I loved all of them. I was like, the foundation is brilliant. You guys do such a good job. I'd like to raise money for you as well. And so for cycling around the world, it was Solar Aid. Okay. And then because I just really believed in the foundation and the work that the foundation were doing, when I swam the length of Britain, I just said again to them, I was like, right, I'd like to continue raising money for the foundation. And they said, oh, great. Well, actually, for this one, we'll give whatever you raise to War Child. Okay. So at the time, I actually hadn't heard of War Child, but then when I sort of found out what they were doing, I thought, oh, this is brilliant. Yeah, this is such a good cause. But yes, it was all actually originally done through the Forward Foundation, which I'm not sure exists anymore because it was, this umbrella company, the Forward Internet Group.
Yeah.
It was their foundation, and I'm not sure whether they're still going. But yeah, so that's basically how the relationship with War Child came about through the foundation.
Okay, for sure. So then you finish this thing, and you go through the swim. That there's 3-year gap between the next record, which was the world's longest triathlon at the time, I believe. Is that correct?
So yes, so 2013 I did the swim. Mm-hmm. Then 2014 I attempted running Land's End China Gross to become the first person to do the run, but got injured on that. Then 2015 I did the run because I wanted to be the first person to do a length of Britain triathlon, which I then did because of the run, and I still am the only person because no one else. There's only two other people who've done the swim. So until either of them do the run or the bike, So I'm hoping they'll do it so that my Christmas party has more people than just me. Just want more people to join my club. It's a bit lonely, the lads into John O'Groats Triathlon Club is just me.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, Ross and Jasmine, come on, sort it out.
Yeah, for
You've
real.
done the hard
How
one. Do the other two. Come
how
on.
many total hours do
So,
you know for the full triathlon? Like how many total hours you put into that?
oh Jesus. Well, it
I
was
guess
4.5 months for the swim,
okay.
a month for the bike because I did it super
5.5.
slowly, and a month for 44 days for the run.
Yeah. My goodness.
So yeah, I mean you're coming on to half a year really for all of it. Yeah, so that was 2015, and then 2016 I did the world's longest triathlon, continuous triathlon, which was almost like a quaddecker, which no one's done before. So you do deckers, double deckers, and there was one triple decker
Okay.
in Italy, and like 5 years ago maybe, but they've never put on a quaddecker event. So mine was almost a quaddecker, except my bike leg was a bit shorter,
Okay.
so it wouldn't have been considered an official quaddecker. But yeah, it landed up being the longest because the record was 3,500 miles, I think, and I did 4,200 as a total distance. So
Around the coast. That's
that was 20.
and I'll link that. And I saw that was on Amazon Prime. There's like a specialty documentary around it, right?
Yeah, so the Length of Britain run
Okay.
is on Amazon Prime, and so is the World's Longest Triathlon. They were originally filmed on Discovery Channel, and then now you can get them on Amazon Prime. Yeah, they're really good. I'm really proud of those. Actually, it's quite a nice memory to have those out there.
Yeah.
So
Hopefully your kids will think you're cool after they watch those when they're about 16.
Well, hopefully. Although I did watch it the other day. There's like a PG-15 on them. I was like,
PG-15?
What happened? I know. And then I was like, oh yeah, I get naked twice, and I get in a cold river, and then there's a bit of swearing, but they bleep it out. So I don't know. I might have to wait a few years for them to watch it.
Or you could rip it off and then just, I don't know, blur out a few things. It'll be fun.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really neat. Okay, so you do those things. 2016, you do this big thing. 2018, you do the record fastest unsupported crossing of Europe on a bicycle, starting in Copa de Roca, West Coast, going to Portugal. You successfully cycled nearly 4,000 miles, finishing on the Russian town of, I would pronounce, I guess, Ufa, in 24 days, 18 hours, 39 minutes. How did you do that unsupported? Like, what was that like, figuring that out?
Well, to be honest, it felt easy, really, because by now I'd cycled around the world. I did Land's End John O'Groats unsupported. I'd cycled around the world unsupported.
Okay.
I'd done the world's longest triathlon unsupported, and that bike leg was 3,500 miles.
Okay.
I did the Route 66 bike race, but got injured on that, so I had to pull out of that. So sort of bike packing was my thing, really. So I'm super comfortable. If you said cycle to Australia, Sean, other than having to sort out some visas, I could genuinely go into my garage and I have everything there to cycle around the world. And I could do that tomorrow, other than visas. So I feel very comfortable. Yeah, I mean, it is my strong point, I think.
Yeah, I'd say so.
I think, if of all three disciplines, swim, bike, run, I would definitely be the most competitive as an ultra cyclist, definitely. Yeah. And it was my first love as well, so it's the one I definitely gravitate towards. A little less now, because just public roads and sleep deprivation, I feel like I'm due another accident. Yeah. So I'm sort of focusing on running a bit more now, but yeah. So yeah, self-supported basically means you're just on your own. You basically do what you want. That was also a documentary which is on Amazon Prime at the minute as well, but the film crew have nothing to do with anything. They just sort of jump out of a bush and catch me when I'm stopping and film me, and I shoot a lot on my phone and whatnot, and they give me a GoPro. But really, you're just trying to minimize the time off the bike mostly.
Yeah. That's
where you win and lose these races, is sleeping a little bit less.
Yeah.
But still getting the recovery, not stopping as much for lunch breaks and things like that.
Yeah.
And just try to have a fairly lightweight setup. It was a hillier route than I thought. I really thought it would be flatter than it was. bit like Portugal's hilly. Spain was a little flat. Oh, my light's just gone off.
Nice.
Spain was a little flat. But a big climb up into Spain, and then actually most of it was sort of up and down.
Sure, it was beautiful.
To save batteries, I didn't Strava it on. So I have the GPX from just a tracking system.
Yeah.
But it doesn't. And it will have elevation there, but it wouldn't have my speed and my heart rate and things, which is a bit annoying.
Yeah.
Oh, that might have my speed. I need to get that off. But yeah, I need to see what the elevation was on that really, because when nowadays with like the watch I've got lasts like a month. It's incredible. Like I could totally have done it nowadays. Put it on Strava, which is a shame. Yeah, so I've got the GPX file. To prove that I did the route. So I've got that. So I need to find out. I wonder if that'll have the elevation. I need to speak to my map guy.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's only been 5 years. I'm really quite shocked that you don't know some of that stuff.
Yeah.
I would be like scouring.
You know what? I know, but once I've done something, I move on pretty quickly. Yeah. I'm already on to the next thing. I'm like, right, that's a done deal. Happy days. I don't make a big hoo-ha about it. I just be like, right, cool, sweet, crack on. Let's move on to the next thing. So so that one, I tend to sort of gloss over them. Once I've done them, I've done them.
Yeah.
Right. Move on now.
yeah, for sure. Okay, well, in the spirit of that, we'll go to I guess the last big thing I want to talk about, and then I have some like future-esque questions to ask you, if that's okay. 105 Ironmans in 105 days. So I came across you. I think you were at day like 58 or something. And then I somehow saw you on Instagram, because obviously the triathlon community was like, wow, this guy's nuts. And then you were going after the record from the Iron Cowboy, I believe.
Yeah.
When did you decide that, okay, I'm going to do this? And then you started, what was that time period?
So it goes back a bit, actually. So when I finished my Europe record, I had got the one of three records. So you got first, longest, and fastest.
Yeah.
There's also the most of, which I didn't really work out that the James Lawrence's record was a different type of category, which is the most. But I actually did think about doing 100 back in 2018.
Okay.
I lived in the Lake District. I thought, I actually worked out a route. So I was going to swim in the lake, cycle down towards Barrow and back, and then run on the other side of the lake twice there and back, and it's a marathon. It would have been a terrible route in hindsight, but I thought of it anyway.
Just because of elevation.
But then, like other,
curious, sorry.
Yeah, elevation mainly. Yeah, and road quality. I wouldn't have been able to tuck down into aero position as much.
Yeah.
So, which just you need to be. And I was surprised James, when he did his 100, didn't have time trial bars on his bike, because
there's a lot of gains.
Man, you're saving 10, 20 watts, and you're doing that all day. But so that's so the route would have been crap. But I didn't do it because other stuff came up. There was another record that I wanted to break that sort of got some traction with sponsors, and then obviously COVID happened, and then obviously we know what happened there. So then it was 2021. Yeah, end of 2021. I suddenly was just, again, with COVID having postponed this other record, and eventually it was off the cards. I was like, well, I need to think of something else. And I was like, maybe I should have a crack at the Ironman record again. And knowing James had done the 101 was super exciting. I was like, sweet. So he can, 100 is doable. Yeah, and then it sort of, in my head, it had my name written all over it. I've done the world's longest triathlon. I'm the only person to have done a length of Britain triathlon. So anyway, in July 2022, which again, in hindsight, was a bad call because it wasn't enough time to train. But I didn't want to wait 18 months or 14 months. I was a bit impatient, which again, just was a bad call. I should have just been more patient. So I remember having a crack. Well, when I did the first attempt in 2022, man, the internet did not like me at all.
Yeah,
I couldn't believe it. My wife and I were sitting back and going, Well, we were thinking one of two things. Because basically everyone was just like, what? You're wasting your time. Who is this guy? What does he do?
Yeah.
Like, and I was like, so two things are happening here.
Yeah.
One is, you know, no one's bothered to look back at what I've done in the past. And they just think I'm a
Yeah.
novice. So, which is fine. If that's it, I'm cool with
Yeah.
that because, they've just not bothered to look at whether I'm actually able to do this.
Yeah.
So I wasn't so bothered about them. What I was bothered about was all the people who did know my past and still thought I couldn't do
Yeah.
it.
Like, what in the world?
Yeah. Then I was like, oh, geez, maybe I've not thought this through. Like maybe it is just impossible. Like maybe James Lawrence is a god, which he
Yeah, the
is,
seeds
but
of doubt
still.
have been planted.
Yeah, and then I was like, oh, geez, and then because also the other thing is James famously said that he was going to take the record to the grave, which the terrier in me loved. I was like,
Yeah.
no, you're
Yeah,
not.
here we go.
Yeah. So, but he was super inspiring to
Sure.
me, really. And I had him on this pedestal, and I was like, I hope he sort of
Gives you a blessing.
is honored that someone was going to have a crack at his record because whenever someone else has had a crack at my records, I'm like super honored and I'm like brilliant, right? Let's go for it. So. For example, I broke the Europe cycle record I got from a guy called Jonas Deichmann. I broke his record.
Okay.
And then last year he broke my world's longest triathlon record. So
Yeah.
it's great,
Yeah.
it's back
Good
and forth and I
competition.
love it. I think it's great. So yeah, but inevitably people were right. I wasn't prepared for the first attempt in 2022. I got injured. I came off the bike and twisted the tendon on the top part of my foot, the one that you use to lift your
Yeah.
foot up.
Ouch.
And eventually I just timed out, so I was too slow, which is a shame because I was getting into my rhythm. The first week's always the worst, and I'd sort of got over that week really, and it was just the run that let me down.
Yeah.
So my swim was okay. It could have been a bit quicker, to be fair, and it was getting quicker. My bike on the day 7 was the fastest bike, so I was getting better there, finding my groove. But then the injury just made the run take like 9 hours, so it was never going to happen.
Yeah.
So yeah, I timed out on day 6, but I carried on to day 7, which I shouldn't have. That the extra injury I sustained on that last day put me back 4 weeks, I reckon.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess if I'm going to have a superpower in life, it's having a very short-term memory and forgetting the bad stuff.
All the
So
pain. A
you
lot
know,
of triathletes, yeah.
once I knew straight away. I knew straight away that I was going to reattempt. So this was July, end of July. I knew I'd reattempt in around April 2023, which was this year. And I got quite excited about it, to be honest. I love training. I was like, brilliant. Well, I've got another 8 months of training.
There you
Bring
go.
it on.
And
So
rehab.
yeah, so that was my mindset, I guess. And then yeah, just sort of honed all the little, I was 10% down on everything. There's 10 pillars of endurance, which is
Okay.
planning, experience, fitness, health, nutrition, hydration, sleep, muscle management, motivation, and community. And I was probably 10% down on all of them, and that's just too much, So I spent the next 8 months just getting that 10% better on all of them, and then yeah, hit the start line in April this year, just ready to go, ready to go. So yeah, that was that was the road to the start of that, which was really began in 2018.
Yeah.
But also really began 10 years ago when I sort of got captivated by swim, bike, run, because I've never stuck to one discipline.
Yeah, for sure. So you've got to the start line in the preparation for this, because you said your nutrition's come a long way. Obviously, with Ironman, one Ironman alone, you have to have your nutrition dialed, especially if you're like wanting to keep a consistent pace for 105 days. So did you have like nutritionists and dietitians on board, or did you just kind of do your own research and mini carbs per hour? Here's my sodium. Here's my electrolytes. We'll make it happen.
Yeah, so 50-50, I reckon. So 50% I got advice from a nutritionist, and she wrote a game plan. But then it was very difficult to stick to it because I got flavor fatigue, and I just, there's certain things I just didn't want to eat anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And also we were really unsure on what my heart rate was going to be. So when I did my sort of carb fat threshold testing, we didn't know what I'd be running at. I knew it would never be above 140. I thought maybe it'd be hovering around 125, 130, in which case I'm sort of in the middle ground of burning fat and carbs. Because above 140, I'm 100% carbs.
Yeah.
But, from 110 to 140 is when the transition happens.
Yeah.
So we had this plan around sort of, quite a bit of carbs, some fat, some protein, electrolytes, as you say. But actually, it turned out I was running at about 105 in the end.
Oh, really?
Which,
interesting.
Yeah. So I just got I built up a really good engine and got to a stage. And again, whoever's going to have a crack at this record, your goal should be trying to do a 13-hour or a 14-hour maybe, if you can live nearer the start end point.
Yeah.
Because I had 40 minutes in a car each day, 10 minutes in the morning and half an hour in the evening to get back home. And so that wasn't ideal. But let's say 14 hours minimum. You need to be trying to do a 14-hour Ironman in zone 1, really.
Wow.
Maybe the top end of zone 2. Sorry, the bottom end of zone 2. But really, that would be my sort of suggestion from a fitness level. If you can go out and do 14 hours, staying at about 105 heart rate, 110 heart rate, then you're somewhere in a position to make it sustainable.
Yeah.
Because even once you're hitting the 130, 140 heart rate, it's just so hard to sustain that.
Just because you're burning too much or what?
And fatigue, you'd be surprised. The day in and day out consistency means that even 130, 140 is too much. You're burning the candle too hot, surprisingly. So luckily I got to a stage, and it was touch and go whether I would stay on the wave, because I got a couple of injuries early on and I was super slow. Day 2 and 3, I nearly missed the 17-hour cutoff because of a knee injury. I think I had 5 minutes to spare.
Oh my goodness.
So, and that was just an error on my part from a saddle height issue. I just measured my saddle wrong. I thought I'd nailed it, but I had a different crank on the new bike. So yeah,
details matter.
It's my own fault. Yeah, I wanted shorter cranks because I just felt more comfortable with a slightly shorter crank, and then just forgot that the bike fit I had was on a bike with longer cranks. So when I measured the saddle from the middle of the bottom bracket up to the saddle, I was a centimeter off, which is huge. So it was sort of really just trying to get conditioned and fit enough and fast enough so that when you bring it way down, when you can, because most people can do zone 1 all day, or zone 2 all day, as long as you're eating right and getting enough sleep. So the trick is, as I said, to be fast enough in zone 1 or 2 to still give you enough sleep.
Yeah.
And that's when it becomes sustainable. And that's the only way you can do 105. Because there's no way in a million years you could do it at 140 every day.
Yeah.
Your heart rate would be too high. You'd
have AFib.
You'd be burning. Yeah, your muscles wouldn't recover from that.
Sure.
Unless, there might be someone out there who's biologically maybe more conditioned to doing a 12-hour day at 140 and then getting the 12 hours recovery. That could work for you. I think for me, doing 13 hours, which 13 and a half hours to 14 hours was my average, at 105 or 110, for me was a more sustainable model.
Yeah.
But there are other people but then again, there's only 3 other people in the world who've done more than 50. Me, James, and a Lithuanian guy, I think, who's done 60. So, and he's interesting, actually. I can't find a lot about him, but he did 60, but he was doing them all in around 12 hours, so pretty quick. But he was also only getting 6 hours sleep because he put all his data on a spreadsheet.
Interesting.
And I was like, man, he was doing a super good swim, a super good bike, like a really fast bike, like 5 hours, 450s or 5 hours bike, and then a pretty good run. So he was doing like a 12-hour day, but then in his sleep column, it's like 6 hours sleep. I'm like,
Yeah, like
what'd
9,
you do
10,
for the other
12.
6 hours?
Yeah.
And then also he just stopped at 60, and he did this after James had done 100, I believe. Yeah. So James had done the 100 already, and this chap, I forget his name, did 60 and then chose to stop, even though he was smashing it. He was doing 12.
Did
Yeah.
you
So
talk to
I'm
him like
wondering
you
why he
know him?
stopped. No, I only found out about him while I was doing it
Okay.
because I was trying to find out, who else have done quite a lot. So there's a French guy who did 40. There's this Lithuanian guy who's done 60.
Mm-hmm.
James has done 102. I've done 105. So there's only 4 of us who've done more than 30. So on the whole planet,
Yeah.
so it was difficult to find information about, especially this. I think he's Lithuanian.
Yeah.
Because he just didn't make a big deal of it. Which again, I'd love to meet him and
Yeah.
ask me, like, why did you stop at 60, man? You were smashing
Yeah.
it. Your times were amazing. Other than your sleep column, which
Yeah.
I really don't understand why you were only getting 6 hours sleep, but like you should have done the 103, man. You should have gone for it.
Yeah, for sure.
So I know
Already
I'd
over
love to speak
halfway
to
there.
him.
Sheesh. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it'd be super fascinating. I don't know if anyone's tried to do this before, but get all of you who have done 30 plus like in a room together to have like a podcast type of conversation, just sharing some of the stories, because you guys have experiences
Yeah,
that nobody else
absolutely.
would be able to like
Yeah,
even get on
yeah,
the level of
totally.
understanding.
Yeah, no, I'd love it. I'd love it because I bet you we all had the exact same problems,
Yeah.
but we just had them in different ways, shapes, and forms. But I reckon you would have all had the shits at the beginning. We would have all had this the high heart rate. Like my sleeping heart rate for the first week average was 89.
Woo.
Like yeah, it's now 30 something. So
Yeah, like you're
my body was just
freaking out.
there's that famous Mike Tyson quote, which is everyone has a plan until I punch him in the face.
Yeah.
So, or something like that, so the first week or 10 days is real hard. For me it was actually the first 3 weeks. After the first 3 weeks I've slowly found my rhythm, I guess.
Yeah. If you don't mind, really quick, tell me those names, because this podcast won't air for a little bit, and I'm going to try to reach out to everybody and see if I can make this happen.
Yeah, oh jeez, I forget their names. There's a French guy, so he's the guy who's in the Guinness book.
Okay.
Still, then there's a Lithuanian guy, and again, I don't
It's all right. I'll
know his
Google it.
name,
I'll figure it out.
unfortunately. But so the French guy did 41, and I believe he was going for James's 50 record. So although James's 50 record wasn't official because of he did a couple indoors and used the elliptigo, but still, it
Okay.
was freaking impressive.
Yeah.
So the French guy was trying to get the 50
50
record, I believe.
Okay.
And then I don't know why he stopped at 41. Maybe he got injured. Maybe he came off the bike. I'm not sure. Because that's your biggest risk on that
Is wrecked.
is falling off the bike or getting injured on the run, really. Then this other guy did 60. And again, I don't know his name.
That's the Lithuanian guy?
Yeah, James. I think it's Lithuanian. I think.
Okay.
Yeah, could be
And then James, I know
Latvian, but I think
James.
I think he's Lithuanian. And then James and me. So yeah. So and then hopefully there'll be someone else, because I'd love someone else to have a crack. Because I think 200s I could have carried on. I definitely could have carried on, but I wouldn't have. Yeah, I didn't want to move Christmas Day.
Yeah.
So I kind of regret not saying 200 from the beginning, because I think I could have done it, and I could have got the funding for it and all that.
Yeah.
Well,
maybe for your 45th
but
birthday.
so the scary thought about 200, I think it's today or yesterday.
Would have been the day.
If I would have been the day, I know the 5th would have been 210 actually. So it was last week, because I remember thinking I've worked it out. If I'd started day 1 again on the day after I finished, when would I have got to 105? And I think it's on Monday.
Oh wow.
So it's in 2 days from now, and that is terrifying.
Yeah.
I'm like,
that
is because it seems way longer since finishing than during it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, actually that is a long time to have been doing that.
Yeah, and I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like mentally it would almost be a little bit more tough to go back and do it now, because every day that you did this was kind of like a personal best. of sorts, and then you're like, okay, I'm at 105, only 100 more to go. Like that's just like
Yeah,
mind-boggling.
yeah, yeah. No, I don't know. I
Or
think
you'd be just down.
I could do it. I no, I definitely. I would actually enjoy it. I think not enjoy it. There's no part of it that's enjoyable, but I would definitely enjoy. I think in 10 years' time, when my kids are a bit older,
Hmm.
I think if no one's done the 200 in 10 years' time, I'll have a crack at it. Definitely.
That's
Or if James Lawrence announces that he's going to have a crack at it, then I'll do it at the same time as him.
oh man, now that would be interesting. The
That would be
competition.
cool, wouldn't it? He keeps messaging me to try and to get me to go and do his starvation triathlon in Utah, and I'm super keen. But it's only a full distance. Like it's too
But you'd eat
short.
nothing.
Like no, it's just that's the name of the valley. It's
Okay.
called the Starvation
I was gonna
Valley, I
say,
think.
like,
Yeah. No, it's a full iron distance. So 2.4 swim, 112
yeah,
bike marathon, and then but yeah, he's like, "Come on, man, you and me head to head." But I'm like, for a 1 day event, like you're gonna clean me up, man.
yeah,
Like I'm too slow. Like I'm good on the long stuff, and he's like, "We know you're good at the long stuff. Come and do a short one." And I'm like, "Oh, I did a double iron like a month
yeah. I
ago, and
saw that.
even
Yeah,
that was too short for me.
yeah.
Like it just, I think a triple would be a good distance for me, but there's just none of them out there.
Like,
Just no one's putting them on
is it 3 back to back
like
or
events.
3 days, 3 Ironmans?
Yeah, so it's a continuous.
Oh
So
my
it would be a
word.
7.5 mile swim,
Okay.
a 330 mile bike,
Traumatic.
and a 75 mile run. Which again, I love it. I wish there were more of them, but I think there's only like two or three in the calendar year, which is a shame. So
Yeah.
yeah.
It
Anyway, we'll
sounds like
see. We'll
another
see.
Sean Conway business
I've got to.
opportunity.
Well, no, because someone else is doing it as a business, but no one's entering them. So
Oh yeah.
it's it's a brutal events do one, and it's so unsubscribed. They only do it every second year. The triple, they do the double every year, but the triple they say they just don't get enough
Yeah.
entries, so they can only do it every 2 years, which is a shame.
Yeah.
But I have signed up for. Oh, this is awesome! It's a 200-mile running race in a 1 mile tunnel. So that's coming up
That's
in
a one
March.
mile tunnel.
Yeah,
You're gonna tell me that there's no
yeah.
light in the tunnel.
So there is annoyingly, but not at night. So from 11 p.m. till 5 a.m., no lights. So you have to have a head torch. You're not allowed headphones or poles for the run. Yeah, so that's part of the rules. No headphones. So yeah, it's back and forth. This 1 mile tunnel. It's bloody amazing. Can't wait.
Yeah, I'm sure that everyone listening is just thinking the same exact thing.
I nearly pulled out because I found out that the lights were on in the day. I was like, "What? Come on, man!" But it's a public tunnel. Like it's an old railway tunnel through a
Okay.
mountain, which is now just a footpath and a cycle path between Bath and Bristol
Yeah.
in the UK.
What's the start list on
So
that thing?
yeah,
Like how many people?
I don't know. Yeah, it's quite popular. It sells out quickly.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go with 50. Yeah, I reckon this will be a good 50 starting.
Interesting.
And then the cutoffs, I think the cutoff's like 65 hours, which is quite quick for a 200 miler because most people do a sort of 100 mile in sort of 50 hours.
Mhm.
I think they try and do a double, yeah. So you often get 24 hours per double marathon.
Okay.
So there's often a 100-hour cutoff for a 200 miler, but this one I think is a bit quicker.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but yeah, I'm hoping to do sub 60 hours anyway. I think 55 with 15 minutes sleep in the middle. I think.
What's
Yeah,
what's
that'll
the
be
moving pace on that? Do you know? And even for kilometers per hour, or the kilometers per minute.
Yeah, so you know, for me, it'd be nice to do probably 60 miles, 70 miles in each 24-hour period. So with no sleep, so I'll probably be trying to do about 4 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah, with some stops. I don't know. It's new territory for me.
Yeah.
So
You've started training
because
for
I know
it?
I can do 65 miles in about 15 hours normally, self-supported.
Yeah.
Carrying everything.
Yeah.
So I think I'd want to slow that down a little bit.
Yeah.
But But you never know. I might be able to keep that
Yeah.
pace. So who knows? Maybe I'll hit the 100 miles in 24. The first 124, maybe. I doubt it, but maybe 25, 26, and then the second one will be a bit slower, I reckon.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
What is your greatest motivator in life? Like, what is something you wake up each morning and maybe you have an off day every once and then a blue moon. What is it that like you
yeah.
go to?
I have to chase difficult things, you know. And that's my motivator. Like, as I said, if it's the harder it is, the more I'm excited about having a crack at it. Because also, I really feel nothing for failing. I've failed so many things.
Yeah.
In fact, half the records I've attempted have taken 2 attempts because I'm just not scared of failure at all. I just think if you fail at something, it's just your practice run.
Yeah.
You get have another crack at it next time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm really motivated about difficult. Like the harder it is, the more I'm interested in it. So and then and long, I like stuff that's months long as well. So
Yeah.
I get excited by that. And yeah, so every day I'm just scheming lots of different things, and the records, I do like the records. It gives me something to chase. So I'm umming and ahhing about the lap of Wales running record
Okay.
that got broken this year. That got broken this year.
Okay.
So that's 48 miles a day for 3 weeks.
Wow.
So nearly a double marathon every day for 3 weeks. I think I've got that in me.
Yeah.
Even now, I think I'd have to work a little bit. My technique's pretty good. I use a guy called Shane Benzie. He's an amazing guy who's sort of I've been working with. And there's a couple of things I need to do when I get tired to keep my technique better. Because I over quad basically when I'm tired. And I
Like you're
lose my
slamming the ground?
springiness. So I'm just almost doing mini squats,
Oh,
really,
you start
as opposed to skipping. So if you picture, you can either it's much harder to do squats than it is to skip on a rope, right? Because when you skip on a rope, you're using your elastic energy to bounce up and down.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're doing squats, you're just using your muscular energy, and that's way less efficient, way more fuel intensive, way more calorie intensive.
Yeah.
So, and there's a way you can engage your fascia to run much better, and use way less energy. So, which I'm pretty good at when I think about it, but when I get tired, I stop thinking about it.
Lazy.
And then it's a fast downward spiral once you've lost that elasticity and you start using your muscles, and then your muscles break down, then you get even slower.
Yeah.
Then you're fully fatigued.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I need to work on that technique a little bit for this 200 miler.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's still pretty good. My technique's still pretty good.
Yeah.
Which I'm happy about.
So when you were doing the 105, I imagine that would like needed a big focus. Is it just like a constant reminder as you're getting on, okay, I'm going to go run a marathon, I feel it breaking down, you just adjusting the way that you lean forward, or you're trying to feel the...
Exactly. Yeah, a couple of things. Yeah. So leaning head up. So I actually, weirdly, I have a tendency to lean too far back when I
Same.
run. So I have to sort of get more upright, more chest out. And then the big thing for me is as soon as I just start pivoting my waist. So if you ask Kenyans where their waist is, most of them will point at the bottom of their rib cage, because that's where you pivot. You pivot quite high up when you run. Whereas, if you ask you and me where your waist is, you're pointing down on your hips, right? But because they turn really high. So when they run, they're pushing their arms back and they're pivoting right up at their rib cage. And if I do that, it really fixes a lot of my technique. And then the other thing is just thinking about my glutes more. So when I take a step, especially if there's a little bit of an incline, I try and like only use my glutes. And then you really, because that's your biggest muscle. So it's much easier walking up a hill with your glutes than it is with your quads.
Mm-hmm.
So it's little things like that, which I know in theory, but when you're tired and sleep deprived, you just start stomping, and it's important to like go right. Okay. And even if you're running slowly, even if you're doing a 6-hour marathon pace, you can still actually run efficiently, without, getting too much breakdown of the old muscles.
Yeah. Just a couple more questions. When
Yeah,
you finished 105 days, your body thinks, "Oh, I'm going to do an Ironman tomorrow. I maybe even for 2 days,
yeah.
3 days." How long did that last? And then tell me about just when your body realized, "Okay, I'm done," and then it just because I read a little bit and it just like shuts down and it's like I gotta do something
Yeah.
different. Tell me about that.
Yeah, yeah. So it was about 3 days. So 2 days after, I was like, I felt fine, and I felt quite good, and I was actually regretting finishing. I was like, oh no.
Yeah,
And then like the third day, all of a sudden my body was like, oh, we're done now, and then boom, that was the crash. And then yeah, it's hard. It was just like exhaustion, extreme exhaustion.
so fascinating.
I was just trying. I needed to sleep like 15 hours a day, but I couldn't because I got young kids.
Yeah,
Um, but like I was motivated to do stuff, but I was just so tired.
yeah.
And then that lasted about a month. And then after about a month,
A month.
the a month off, the motivation came back strong. I was like, right, I am super motivated. And actually my power was good and like my numbers were good. And that's when I did the double. I also ran 65 miles to a festival. Um, and actually after running that 65 miles, I felt better the next day than I did on every single day of the Ironmans, like every single day. So the so I was feeling pretty good. And then I hit a second bad wave, which was about a week, 2 weeks ago, where again, just even though my numbers were good, my power was good, like I get on the bike and go for a run and I'm smashing it, but I'm just exhausted.
Interesting.
So, and I'm still there a little bit now. Like I went on the watt bike yesterday. I've been ill for a week, so it's been a bit annoying. So I went on the watt bike and like I could put when I want to put the power down, like I'm good. I can do 300 watts for a while, a good 10, 15 minutes. And so it's, the numbers are good,
Mm-hmm.
but man, am I exhausted. Like
Interesting.
even while I'm doing it, even though my heart rate's pretty good, my power's pretty
I
good,
wonder what that
just
is.
my perception of fatigue is so high. And I don't know what that is. I don't know if that's my body going, whoa, dude, no, don't do this. Right. No, we don't want this anymore.
Yeah, like we're
I don't
totally
know.
done. We're checked
Yeah.
out. Thanks for coming, but we're not here.
Yeah, exactly. Like, don't do this to me again. So it's just telling me. But so it's interesting. So I've lost the mojo a little bit over the last couple of weeks,
Yeah.
and I've been ill, so that doesn't help.
Have you talked to James? Did he
Um,
experience similar things?
yeah, he had a way rougher time than me.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had a way rougher time than me. So he was 2 hours slower each day than I was. So he wasn't getting nearly as much sleep as I was. He had those injuries. He had really bad injuries. So he would have had way higher cortisol levels in his body, I presume, just because of the stress from being injured and the
Yeah.
stress of not having enough sleep. And then because of those injuries and things, he also was having like 3 hours of physio, apparently, according to him. Um, on top of it, so he was saying he was falling asleep in the swimming pool in the mornings. So
That's
he
insane.
definitely had a much rougher time than I did.
Yeah.
And you know it's partly I am, without trying to blow my own trumpet too much, but I definitely had more experience in the multi-day stuff than James. James did his 50 and then he did the 100. Whereas for 10 years I've been doing long stuff.
Yeah.
My round the world bike ride was 150 days. My length of Britain swim was
Yeah.
135 days. My world's longest triathlon was 85 days. So I've hovered around the 100 days a lot, all gone past it quite a lot. Um, and the other big thing is I'm a much better runner than him. So he through his own admission did no run training, and I'm sitting there going, dude, if you're only going to
Good
train for
grief.
one thing, train for the run. Like that's the one that's going to kill you.
Yeah.
Like you can survive the bike and the swim's easy, but like do some running, man. And I remember him saying, "Oh, I hate running. I'm not going to do any run
Oh my
training." And I'm like,
goodness.
"Please do some run training, James."
Yeah.
And then he gets a stress fracture on day 3, poor guy. But I tell you what, like hats off to him to carry on and do another 99 or
Yeah.
98 with those injuries. Just bloody impressive.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, he's super
Mentally
strong-willed and
tough. Yeah.
and mentally tough and I hats off to him, and as I said, he inspired me a lot to sort of have a crack at these sort of things. But yeah, again, if someone wants to break my record, just you got to do some running, man. You got
I'm
to
almost
like
inspired.
because that. Yeah, I mean, I can't wait because also I was looking at the part of the data, and I genuinely believe that the 105 doesn't favor a biological male either. So I think a female could get the overall record. I genuinely do. So it'd be awesome if there's a girl out there. I'm trying to find a girl to try and get the female record, which I think you would need to do 30 or 31 because there's some people who've done a continuous double decker. There's a girl in the UK, Claire. She's done a double decker continuous.
Okay.
I'm not sure anyone's done the one a day, but I think if there was a female record would need, I think that the female record would need to be at around 31 for people to go, oh yeah, you've definitely got it, because there's not a lot of information on other people who've done stuff.
Do you know
there.
Heather Jackson?
No.
So she just
No, I don't.
retired from a professional triathlete, did halves and fulls, mostly fulls, but she's been doing a lot of ultra running, and she just won some, like, I think it was, don't quote me, I think it was a 200-mile race, because she's been getting into ultra running.
Oh, cool.
But I feel like I could see her being the female who has done it, because she's got to be late 30s, early 40s, so she's about perfect for it, and she has a lot of just past Ironman experience. I'd be tempted to message her and be like, "Hey, I was talking to Sean. You know who he is? Cool. What do you think about this?"
Oh yeah, honestly, I'm super keen to help someone get the female record. I even asked my wife could do it, so I've opened it up to Caroline, and I've taken that horse to water. So she needs to want it now. So we're gonna do one because she's pretty sporty and stuff.
That's awesome.
Kids have sort of stopped her doing stuff obviously the last 4 or 5 years. So but yeah, I'm super keen to find someone to get the female record, and B, find someone who wants to break my record. I'd love to mentor them and help them and give them or any advice that I can, because I think it's cool, man. I think it'd be nice just to have more people in the club.
Yeah, for sure. That's so neat. Well, hey, thank you so much for coming on. I have one more question. Admittedly, what I usually do is I look into an email chain. I don't know, it's called the Morning Brew, and they have these just wild stats at the end, and I usually ask a question based off one of the stats. I totally forgot to put that in. So I have another question that I hope is stupid enough for you. I was just going to ask you, Sean, why did you say yes to come onto this podcast?
Oh, I'm a yes man. I love doing podcasts.
I love it.
Yeah, I do. I love it. I think I have a responsibility, because if you go off and decide to do something that if you think one person out there could hopefully get something from you, then I think it's important that you tell people about it and don't hide away from it. And there's definitely a teacher in me somewhere, and I think my next career is probably going to be a school PE teacher, I reckon. And so any way, shape and form I can sort of tell people about me being miserable and cold and hungry and tired for the last decade, and if that resonates with anyone else to have a crack at breaking some records or pushing themselves, and I can go to bed happy. So yeah, that's why I'm on here now.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. It's been a great pleasure of mine. I've been looking forward to it for quite a while. And would definitely love to have you on in the future again, especially as I'm sure you've already got ideas cooking upstairs for what's going to be the next thing.
Yeah, absolutely. There'll be loads of ideas. But yeah, thanks, Seth. Yeah, thanks for having me on, mate. It's been awesome.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode with Sean Conway. It was such an awesome one. The longer I do these podcasts and you get these people on with these amazing stories, I'm just like, I can't cap it at an hour. I could probably go for 3 hours, but I know he had to go cook dinner, so let him go. But thank you so much for listening to this one. If you are on YouTube or if you're on YouTube or anything like that with Instagram and whatnot, please give us a like and subscribe and comment. Really helps it out. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or Spotify, please give the podcast a review and leave a comment. In Spotify, you can even ask questions in the polls. Would really appreciate that. If you want to join our newsletter, you can do so at the stupidquestions.show website. You can scroll down to the bottom. If you sign up for that newsletter, we will hopefully be sending out some emails here before too long, just letting you know about future guests, what's going on, and also do some exclusive giveaways with partners such as the Rudy Project, who we've worked with in the past. And so thank you guys so much for checking it out, and we will catch you in the next one.